We'll see. So with that, I give you John, the EMT. John, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Just make sure you talk
Okay.
loud because
All right.
I can be loud too. So give us as much detail as possible. How did the beginning of 2020 look to you? and
Uh,
as the year went, give us as much as you can.
well, I'm going to start at the very beginning of
Okay.
2020. And to do so, I would have to start and say Happy New Year. And of course, that would be 2020, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
So let's not go that far back, but I had moved to New York. And the purpose was that I had got what I believed was to be a decent job. And I wish I could give details. But I had been an EMT for about 15 plus years. And because of my experience in moving to New York, I had the pick of the litter, I guess. And I'm not patting myself on the back. I didn't have to settle for any old EMT job. I went there and did interviews. In fact, I did a lot. And I think I did too many, if I recall, because it started to get a little difficult to try to pick at some point. But I finally settled on one. And I moved to New York, and I want to say it was like 2019, late. It was in December. And I didn't start with the service until a couple months later, early February.
Okay.
And it was before basically there was this whole notoriety thing with COVID. I think it was kind of known a little bit, but more so what we were hearing, what was going on in China. Does everybody remember this?
Oh, I know very well.
Okay.
Yeah, in the beginning, every finger pointed at China, and then it changed. And by the way, congrats, for signing on just at the absolute worst time you could sign on.
It gets better. It does get better, though. I didn't just get hired on at the absolute worst time to get hired on. I got hired on at the worst time to get hired on in the worst place to get hired on. And I didn't just get hired on and run 911 in the worst place at the worst time. I lived in the worst place at the worst time. I guess it's okay. I mentioned this. I moved to New Rochelle. And if anybody recalls following the news, you'll remember that's where patient zero, I don't know if everyone's familiar.
Yeah.
Patient zero was. That's where it started. That's where it started to spread. And at first it was slow. And I do want to mention, let's see, I think I was sick like in January, and I think I told you this on the phone call.
Yeah.
And it was before I started with the service. And I will say, it was like this super flu. It really took its toll on me. And I don't know if I should say my age or what. But I was sick for like 2 weeks, man.
Ballpark it. You 20s or 30s?
I'm in my 40s.
Well, 40s, right?
Yeah. So it took its toll on me. And it was like this super flu. In fact, I had dubbed it like the worst flu I ever had in my life. And I don't know where I got it. I don't know how I got it. But it was before the whole mask thing. Like, we're not even sure if this helps. Anyway, I'm trying to be polite. So that took its toll for about a couple weeks. And eventually, I started the following month with this quote-unquote ambulance service, and what you don't see is me doing air quotes at this point.
Yeah.
So it started to really get momentum. And it was very slow at first. And then it was just like this huge avalanche. And I want to say it was like the following month, late February, early March. And I was there for about a month to get a feel for what their level of 911 calls was per shift. And I will tell you this, from what I understand, I know what it feels like, I know what I saw, and I know what I did. But as far as numbers, just so everybody gets an idea, the level of, or the amount of 911 calls that this service typically does is about 350 a day. And I think that's like a bad day for Westchester County. Once COVID hit, it's insane. This explains a lot. Once COVID hit, that doubled. We're talking about 750 911 calls a day. And I believe this to be entirely accurate. From what I understand, this is what I was told, this is what I saw and read.
Yeah.
And I know what I went through. Once it hit, like I said, it started slow, and then it just avalanched, and it was just nuts. And it did not let up. I was doing like 12 hours nonstop on an ambulance, not even stopping, 16 hours nonstop. We're talking basically that you couldn't even stop to get a drink, you couldn't even stop to go to the bathroom. It was one 911 call to the next. And by the time you got there, you had this feeling like, they'd been waiting a while. And maybe that's my opinion, but I don't think so. We were just really overwhelmed. In fact, at some point, we had help come in, and I know that we're not the only ones. I know FDNY and a few others were just as overwhelmed. And there was ambulances that were coming in from Western United States, like Colorado, things like that. And what they did basically is they drove their rigs over. And I think, for example, I want to say I don't know this to be exact, so just understand this is a ballpark. I think there might have been like 15, 20 trucks with EMTs and medics that came to our aid. And when they did, it was like a relief, because I was at the point, and I know I'm not the only one, nobody's special, man. I think a lot of us were feeling it, that I don't want to do this anymore. I want to quit, man. And I love doing what I do. It was just this really neat thing to be able to help people, and it was a cool experience. But I was so overwhelmed, I just couldn't do it. I wanted to quit, man. It was just nonstop. And we were getting, I don't know if anyone knows the term mandated, but we were getting mandated 4, 5, 6 hours past your end shift time. Didn't matter. You couldn't go. The number of 911 calls in the system was just so relentless. They needed people. And if they didn't mandate you, they made you feel, really, really bad about what's going on. And I will say there's like, there's a good amount of people with compassion and empathy in the system. Okay, because it helps do the job. And then there's, of course, the opposite, just like any business. But for me, it just, I felt bad for them. And it's like, of course, I stayed late. And then there were other times that made you stay late anyway. It was just really, really crazy. I'd never seen anything like it in my entire time doing this. And you know what? I don't think anybody has. Now,
seen what exactly? I don't.
Yeah,
I don't get it. What have you not seen? And what are these people that were calling 911? Like, what were you responding to? Why was there such an overwhelming 911 call?
I'm going to get to that right now. Actually,
okay.
What I'm talking about is the intensity. This level of just non-stop, no breaks in between 911 calls. You went from one to the next, to the next, to the next, and this went on for 12 hours straight, 16 hours straight. It was just insane. I'd never experienced that before. I don't think many people have. Now, I'm going to flash forward to, I think this was about sometime late late February. No, I think it was like mid-March. And I did a side gig, a side job through the company. And it was my job at this point on this shift. It was just me. And I was driving a surgeon, if you will, for an emergency surgery. I'm trying to be careful what I say. That's so if I'm pausing in between, it's not that I'm half asleep, even though it's after 10 here. I'm just trying to be careful how I word things. So it was my responsibility during this side job. It was extra money to basically drive this physician to an emergency surgery. And it was lights and sirens from Manhattan, a couple hours north to somewhere in Poughkeepsie. I don't remember the hospital. So he was in his mid-60s, as best as I recall. Really friendly guy, liked to talk. And it was like a 2-hour ride, 2.5. And at this point, the virus is kind of going nuts. Things are crazy for everybody there. It's blatantly obvious. And I thought to myself, talk to him, just ask him about this virus. But I told myself I wasn't going to do that. So about an hour into the ride, he brings it up. Okay. And like I told Mark, the guy told me something I'm never going to forget for the rest of my life. Now, let me just preface and say that this just isn't just, in my opinion, it's just not, and I think it's obvious, it's not just any old physician. This is some sort of a doctor that's reached a prestigious level in his career. And this is the doctor that they use to do emergency surgeries. They zip him around to do this and that. So he's not just some pediatrician. So he tells me something I'm never going to forget. I don't remember about what. He brings up the virus to me and he says this. And he says, this virus doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm waiting for him to say more. And there was like this pause. And at the same time, I'm thinking, this guy's in his mid-60s. He's been some sort of a physician for I think his entire career. And this guy's telling me this virus doesn't make any sense to him. I don't know how to respond to this. So I said, what exactly do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying. And he said, well, it doesn't behave like anything I've ever seen in my entire career, in my entire time doing this. So I thought for a second, and I tried to figure out what would be an appropriate response. And I said, what exactly do you mean? So for the next hour, this guy beat around the bush, and he never went back. I can only imagine, even he at this point is sensing something's not right. Stuff isn't happening. And maybe he's just iffy on saying anymore without sounding like a lunatic. I really don't know. I can only kind of, I don't guess at this point. But he said enough to me that made me think. And for the next 2 weeks at work, I would report for duty. I would do my shifts. For the next rough 2 weeks, what I was doing was when I was going from 911 call to 911 call, I would try to look at things differently. And what I mean by that is this: I would tell myself when I got to the call, would these people be calling 911 if they didn't know anything about COVID? Because it was like, I don't know how to put this. It was like they had the flu, or maybe even less. It didn't look like a big deal. Now, just because I'm telling you, I was doing like 12 hours straight, 16 hours straight, doesn't mean it was like one nightmare after the next. A lot of these calls didn't make any sense to me. It's like, now every EMT and paramedic or firefighter in this career will tell you the same thing. At 2 a.m, you get this call and it's like, why are these people calling 911? It's just part of the job. But to get such an amplified workload, to see that much nonstop, it made me think something wasn't really adding up. There was a lot of panic and a lot of people calling 911 just because, I got this call
because they thought they had it. In your opinion, the media had fueled the calls. People were like, okay, well, I must have it, so I better safe than sorry. Call 911 and get someone to take me to the hospital.
Correct. In the beginning, and it's not something I haven't thought as well. Would these people be calling 911? But yeah, I have to explain that I didn't really think that way for a little while because myself and along with everybody else, we were in the same ballpark in the sense that we were extremely afraid. Okay, so here I have all this PPE on. I've got double gloves. I've got a face mask. I got a face shield. I got a gown. I'm going into some sort of structure to some sort of an emergency, and I don't know what I'm going to see, and I'm afraid to touch anything. So I'm so distracted by this excess amount of PPE that all of us are not used to wearing, and I just didn't really think about it until this side gig with the doctor, and I started thinking about things, and stuff just didn't add up. Now, you can't. I will say this: you cannot fake this entire thing. You just can't. You can't fake this entire thing, in my opinion, without some sort of a legitimate illness floating around. It's just like you can't fake the moon landing.
Did you know that no virus has ever met Koch's postulates, which is the scientific standard for proving that a virus is actually contagious and can go from person to person? No virus has ever met that. The CDC doesn't even admits that there is no proof that the virus exists. So I'm wondering, are you going to get to the point of your story and start saying something interesting, or are you going to keep dragging this crap out and say that you don't know why people called 911 for 20 minutes? I'm going out of my mind here.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry. I don't have any top secret information if that's what you're waiting for.
Do you have anything? I mean, seriously, you're like, I feel like you're reading from a script. Are you for real right now?
I don't know how to respond to this. What do you want me to say? I don't have any top secret information. It's my opinion that what I saw.
Okay, you say, oh, you can't fake this without there being a real sickness. You know what? People get sick. They're just lying about what makes people sick. Do you understand that?
Well,
I mean, have you looked into that at all? What do you do?
What? I don't understand what you're asking.
What was your point? What was your point with the surgeon, the story with the surgeon that was so vague and random, and it actually meant nothing?
Well, it got me thinking that something wasn't right. That what I was seeing, there's a good possibility that what I was seeing wasn't really what I was seeing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That's what woke you up rather than going to a million 911 calls where nobody's really sick?
Well, I mean, you got to understand, all of
I mean-
us were distracted by fear.
Distracted by fear. You know what I saw? I saw a bunch of video that put out by people that I know who live in New Rochelle where that happened, and they showed us videos and videos of people, bored EMT people, sitting in their EMT trucks doing nothing. Oh, and remember all the TikTok
I will-
nurses dancing?
I will tell you that that is an absolute lie, because I know that I was.
Okay,
being
well,
run to
I
death.
didn't see that. I saw lots and lots of video and report from people that are on the ground there saying that they were sitting in their EMTs doing nothing.
Well, I don't know where that's coming from, because I will
New
tell you.
Rochelle! That's where it's coming from.
Okay, and I was there, and I was working there, and I was being run to death nonstop. Why would I be coming on this show?
I don't know. Maybe because you're a time-wasting troll and you're full of shit?
Mark?
We're going to break. We'll be back.
Fucking joke, dude. I swear to God.
Fucking, excuse me? I have. Wow.
Did you know the earth was flat? The ball of bitches smoking crack. They hate and they always mad, cause they cannot prove shit. I see deep in their asses' eyes. All they do is tell us lies. The earth is not a fucking globe. Y'all can suck my dick. The earth is not no ball. Who the fuck told you that? All you baller bitches need to get fucking slammed. Water always fine, yeah, it's on level. All you baller bitches worship the devil. Suck my balls, y'all can look them through my drawers. I told y'all 100 times, the earth don't fucking curve. Use your fucking common sense. Don't be a stupid bitch. Water is that's not big, and gravity is fake. The earth is not no ball. Who the fuck told you that? All you baller bitches need to get fucking slammed. Water always fine, yeah, it's on level. All you baller bitches worship the devil. Told you that all you baller bitches need to get fucking slammed. Water always fine, yeah, it's on level. All you baller bitches worship the devil. Evil motherfucker.
Why would I be coming on this show?
I don't know. Maybe because you're a time-wasting troll and you're full of shit?
We'll be back.
Fucking joke, dude. I swear to God.
Fucking, excuse me?